Hello everyone, I am Muxlisa Research. Today we'll talk about research methods. Well, what is the methodology itself? Methodology is an outline of overall data collection and analysis strategies that will be used to implement the research cycle. Methodology should be compatible with a preliminary data analysis plan. It can be designed in a way that ensures the intended scope of research. It can be feasibly achieved to the required quality given the time, resources, and access availability. Designing a methodology involves the three key components: selecting the overall research method, selecting the appropriate data collection approach, and the designing sampling strategy. There are some categories of research methods. They can be quantitative and qualitative. Sometimes it can be mixed methods. What is a quantitative research method? Measures prevalence of issues, verify hypotheses, and establish causal relations between variables. Large samples, structural data collection, and predominantly deductive analysis. A qualitative research method explores and discover themes, develop theories, rather than verify hypotheses and measure occurrences. Smaller samplers, semi-structures, data collection, inductive analysis. And there are mixed methods that combines both qualitative and quantitative to collect and analyze both types of data, and they use both approaches in tandem. And there are some deductive and inductive analysis approach. Well, deductive analysis approach define the hypothesis and identify the key variables within it. The frame research question based on key variables within the hypothesis statement. Measures or observe the key variables using statistical analysis methods. Hypothesis tested and verified, sometimes not verified. In inductive analysis, use semi-structured method to explore and gather information, analyze the data to identify the foreign themes and categories. Look for the broad patterns, the generalization, or the theories from the themes and categories. A theory of or the hypothesis development based on patterns, generalizations, or the theories identified. What factors to consider when choosing one research method or another. Overall applicability to meet research objectives, time, for instance, case planning and the decision making, milestones to inform, resources available, material resources, financial resources, human resources, and access to population of interest. While the quantitative and qualitative research. The distinction between quantitative and qualitative research is not always clear out. The individual and the household surveys. The commonly associated with the quantitative large sample research could also be used for qualitative case study. Key informant interviews and community discussion. Commonly associated with the qualitative or the semi-structured data collection and analysis could also be used for quantitative data collection. Analysis via time and resources do not allow a large representative sample. Focus group discussion. Perhaps the most distinctly qualitative research method, always administrated using semi-structured data collection tool, often analyzed using content analysis. For instance, somewhat quantitative approach counting the number of times a theme or a set of words appear with the discussion transcripts. This content analysis can then inform the more in-depth qualitative analysis. Well, that's another difference between the quantitative and qualitative research. According to type of data collection, quantitative research closed-end data collection tools, qualitative semi-structured. According to type of analysis, measuring prevalence, quantifying the issues, and primary involves deductive analysis. For qualitative, it can be exploratory, or primary involves inductive analysis. Types of sampling strategy can use both probability or non-probability sampling, generalization to the wider population possible. For the qualitative research, it can be non-probability sampling, generalization to the wider population not possible. Okay, the unit of measurement. That what is the unit of measurement? The unit that can be used to record, measure, and analyze observations, informations collected. Examples, for example, individual, family, household, community group, town, village, facility, or sometimes code. That unit will impact the time, resources needed to collect and analyze information. The unit will define the depth of information possible and the scope of analysis. Data collection approaches. The structure. The structural survey approach, it is the information collected through the interview, discussion, and the conversation. It is used as structured, closed-ended data collection tools. Collection of quantifiable information, cross-sectional or it can be cross-sectional. Types of data collection method. For example, household survey, it can be individual survey, key information interview, group discussion. Next, that one, the to measure prevalence, provide a quantifiable numeric description of the trends, behaviors, experiences, attitudes, or opinions of a population. Type of research cycles, this approach is commonly used for multi-sector needs assessment, in-depth thematic needs assessment, and third-party monitoring. Okay, the next, the structured experimental approach. It is similar to survey approach, but relies on experimental survey designing that controls and the treatment group. Types of data collection methods, for example, it is a household survey and individual survey. The structural experimental approach, that applicability. To measure prevalence and evaluate the outcomes or impacts of a medium to large-scale intervention to the population of interest, generalize findings to a wider population, probability sample, statistical representative information. Types of research cycles. This approach is commonly used for outcome monitoring, impact evaluation, and etc. Well, the structured observation approach. It is information collected through observation rather than conversation, using structured, closed-ended checklists to collect quantifiable information, looking for specific object behavior or even against a checklist. It can be used as a part of experimental approach. Okay, types of data collection method can be participant observation and the direct observation. The structured observation approach. It serves similar purpose as a survey approach, but it depends on research objectives, observation, or the conversation. Type of research cycles this approach is commonly used for. It could be same as a survey approach, could be same as experimental approach. Semi-structured, okay, data collection approach. Next one is semi-structured. The semi-structured discussion approach. The information collected through detailed narrative interviews, group discussion. Using semi-structured data collection tools, open-ended questions, probes, the purposefully selected participants. Types of data collection method, it is the individual interviews, key information, the informal interviews, group discussion, and the focus group discussion. structured discussion approach. When should you use this approach? To gather detailed insights about the experiences, perspectives, or specific population, group, or location. To provide a qualitative description of the experiences, trends, attitudes, or opinions of the population. Types of research cycles. This approach is commonly used for in-depth assessment where there is limited prior understanding of the situation, access cash among the refugees and immigrants. That participatory mapping exercises. The most significant chance data collection technique. It is a very specific type of participatory discussion-based data collection method used for monitoring evaluation. It invites participants to explain the most significant changes that brought about their life by a project or a given period of time in key domains of change. It is useful for third-party monitoring that impact evaluation research cycles. The semi-structural observation approach, it is a similar to structural observation approach. There are some two differences. That the difference in data collection method for structured observation, information collected using a structured set of questions, usually to identify specific object behavior or even against a checklist. For the semi-structural observation, the information collected based on a short set of open-ended questions for observations, for instance, movement patterns of refugees in and out of camps during a sustained period of time. For differences in purpose, for structured observation provide a quantifiable numeric description of the trends, behavior, experience, and etc. For the semi-structural observation, they gather detailed insight about the behaviors, experiences of a specific population group of location, or to understand by observation how things are done and what issues exist. While the case study data collection technique, it is the using of combination of different data collection methods to zoom into a specific issues, area, or group. It is a component within a research cycle, not a research cycle that by itself. It is useful to collect detailed information on an event, activity, process, group, etc. Zoom into one specific type of intervention in an area with a larger funded humanitarian program. Okay, frequently asked questions. What is the difference between the key informant interviews and individual interviews? Isn't the key informant also technical or individual? The difference lies in the unit of measurement. Individual experiences and community village institution experiences. For the semi-structured data collection, when it is recommended, it depends on two things: research objectives and type of information needed, and the logical constraints, large number of individuals to be reached within a short time frame. While is it possible to have two different units of measurement in the same questionnaire, ideally should be avoided, but there are some exceptions. Individual information within a household survey, the household information within an individual survey, individual information within village, community, location level interview, household information within a village, community, location level interview. What if my population of interest includes minors? Can I collect data from the minors? Only if absolutely necessary to meet objectives of the research, only if required information cannot be collected from adult respondents. Ideally, only from respondents, only if the required protocols are being followed. Will be discussed later in this training. Well, the questions. What is remote data collection? Remote data collection is a means of gathering data without a physical presence in the data collection location and without direct in-person contact with a population of interest. When it is useful? One, it is not possible to conduct in-person visit to the location, population of interest because of reasons such as disease outbreak, time or resource the constraints, access constraints due to security concern, or the physical access barriers such as a lack of the infrastructure, severe weather condition which limits travel possibilities, and etc. Well, then, last one we can talk about the pros and cons of remote data collection. The pros of data collection, remote data collection, according to planning efficiency, it is more time and resource efficient. If necessary logistic already in place, could be fairly straightforward to deploy. The cons, challenging and time consuming to set up correctly. It is difficult to apply as into monitor progress. Implementation efficiency, according to this, the pros are easier to implement given their limited time, access, and resources. The cons, it can be higher likelihood of low responses rates, limited means of verifying responses, data quality assurance, more challenging to build trust with the respondents, difficult to deploy long or complicated questionnaires. According to the coverage, the pros are the ensures maximum possible coverage of areas and population of interest despite access constraints. The cons are difficult to have the full picture as it could introduce potential sample biases and it result in the oversight of certain population groups or the areas. It is all for today. I would like to share that see you next lesson. Bye.